Hey all, Rainbow Staple here, and I hope you're doing well. Today we have an Edison deck profile, namely Chain Burn. Now, we've taken this to 2 locals so far, and the first time we went, we got 3 wins and 1 loss, which was pretty good. I was very happy with that. This week, aka today, I changed a few cards up, and yeah, made it a lot less consistent. Ended up going 2 wins, 3 losses, which isn't bad, but we changed it back to be the more consistent version. Now, there's a couple of cards that I am missing, but I will point those out as we go through and what to swap those in with if you do have copies of those cards. And yeah, let's get straight into it. So first up, we have the monsters. We have 3 battle faders. This is really good because it lets you just kind of skip one turn, basically. You survive one more turn and you get to draw one more card, which is quite often game changing. I had one game today where I drew 3 of these, and I ended up winning that game just because I literally just had 3 free turns to set up more traps and more burn. Next on the list, we have 3 Cyber Valleys. For a similar reason to the Battle Faders, they can often give you a free turn. There's a lot more outs to this. They can literally just pop it and it's gone. The effect is when it gets attacked, you can banish it, end their battle phase, and then draw a card, which is super useful. Well, that's the main effect anyway. You can also use the secondary effect, which is kind of target this card and one other card you control, banish it, and draw 2. Now, what I found very handy is comboing these 2 together. So, when you activate Battle Fader, special summons, and then ends the battle phase, next turn you can normal summon a Cyber Valley, tribute them both off, or banish them both, and then draw 2, which can be very helpful. We run a Sangan. Now that's just to search kind of any of these monsters. In fact, any monster in your deck you can search with Sangan. Super useful, and it's a free draw basically, and it also blocks 1 attack, so can't go wrong. And here we have Injection Fairy Lily. Now, I tried taking this out this week, and I missed it sorely. The body on the field is so powerful, and the small amount of damage you can beat over an opponent's monster with is very helpful. It's basically another burn effect, and your life points don't really matter. You've got so much protection in forms of kind of traps and these guys here that you sacrificing some life points to burn them for a bit more is nothing. It's super powerful, and I definitely recommend running it. And the last 2 cards we run in here, or 2 monsters, are Marshmallow and Grand Mole. Now, Marshmallow, indestructible by battle. You basically set this, and when they attack it, they take 1,000. And oftentimes it takes a couple of turns to deal with it, so they can draw the owl or find something that will pop it without battling it. So this is another kind of auto include for this deck. 1,000 damage for free and a really annoying body on the board. And for the last monster, we have Neospatian Grand Mole. When you attack into a opponent's monster, start the damage step, you bounce both of them back to your hand. Again, this is powerful because your games are going to be going on for a long time, and if you have any kind of stall cards, like any of these guys, except Injection, then you could really utilize this across multiple turns. Just bounce extra deck monsters, bounce back tribute monsters, just get rid of them all, make your opponent take longer so you can kill them over time. So that's it for the monsters. We'll move on to the spells now. So this deck doesn't run very many spells, but the few that I do run, I run 1 copy of Scapegoat. This I've considered siding just in case they have piercing game 1, but summoning 4 tokens and forcing them to attack into those, it can take a couple of turns, and again, save you a couple of turns so you can do more damage. And then we have the namesake of the deck, Chain Strike. Now, Chain Strike lets you deal 400 damage times the number of chain it was in. So if you chained this third, 3 times 400, 1.2 damage. And so this is kind of why the whole deck is trying to chain off and stall, because you basically want to be stalling using all of these cards here, and then setting kind of 5 back row and just popping them all at once, dealing a bunch of damage, and then lastly just going into strike for another insane amount of damage. Now there's a few fun interactions with this. that I will show off for you now. As the one restriction on this card is that you cannot activate it if multiple cards or effects with the same name are in that chain. So, for example, if you activated 2 Secret Barrel before you activated one of these, then you can't activate it. But say if you activated a Secret Barrel, a Change Strike, and then a Secret Barrel, you can do that. Whilst there is 2 Secret Barrels in the chain, whilst Change Strike is activated, there is only 1 Secret Barrel in the chain, since it resolves kind of in order. But what that also means is you could Change Strike on a Change Strike. So how that works is this Change Strike is checking if there's any multiples. Of course, I can't use 2 Secret Barrel, but say if I were to have another card from the deck, say Just Desserts, this still wouldn't count as having 2 in the same chain. Whilst there is 2 Change Strikes, this Change Strike is checking this chain. And there is only 1 Change Strike here, so you can activate it. And yeah, that can really catch people off guard, and it deals a lot of damage when you get it off. That is it for the spell cards. Now we'll be moving on to the traps, which make up a majority of the deck. So we have kind of the core burn cards. We have kind of Secret Barrel and Just Desserts. Now, tell me if you can see which one I got from my childhood and which one I bought so I could play at Edison tournaments. I wonder if you can tell. So, Just Desserts deals 500 points of damage based on how many monsters they have. Pretty simple card, but it's a lot of damage if you just sit on them, chain them all at once. And there is also another card that I'll show off soon that works well with that. Secret Barrel is very similar. It does 200 damage for each card they control and in their hand, which, again, is very powerful. You sit on it, wait for your opponent to do a lot of things, and then pop them all at once, deal a bunch of damage. Now, this is really funny against Exodia. I played against Exodia today, and they drew, I think, 14 cards, and yeah, this burnt for so much. But otherwise, it's a lot smaller on the burn scale. You kind of want to be going for the desserts, but it's still really powerful, and it gives you another card to chain into without being kind of multiple Just Desserts. So next we run 3 Accumulated Fortune. Now, every time I play this card, my opponents go, what the hell is that? So, at this, you can only activate this as Chainlink 4 or higher, and when you do, draw 2 cards. It has the same restriction as Chain Strike, where if multiple cards with the same name are in that chain, then you can't activate it. But similarly, if you were to say, we'll make a chain here. So that's chain link 3, and we can fortune for 4, with chain link 4. But again, you can fortune again because there is only 1 copy of each card in this chain. So you can draw so many cards on one turn, you can pop all your back row, and then just fill up your hand and go again. Super powerful card, especially in this deck. Next we have 3 copies of Reckless Greed. Now this lets you draw 2 and skip your next 2 draw phases. One good thing to know is if you activate multiple Reckless Greed, you still only skip 2 draw phases. So if you have multiple, it's best to just pop them at the same time. It's very rare that that happens, but if it does, that's good to know. It works very well with Accumulated, as it just lets you, as I say, draw back your entire hand, set your back row, set 5, pass. Next we run 2 Wabaku. Now, I've seen people run Threatening Roar, which kind of stops the battle phase, but with Threatening Roar, you kind of can't activate it on your turn, because it skips the, well, it stops the opponent entering battle phase, which they can't do on your turn, and yeah, this you can kind of, if you really have a rough hand, you could just flip this on your turn and kind of chain off, or just make space in your back row, as you often do have 5 set. And next we're on to the one-offs. We run quite a few of these, there's quite a lot of one-off traps in here. We'll start off with Jar of Greed, draws a card, that's it. It's good for baiting out singular spell trap removal, and it's also good for just getting your chain off. It helps start the chain with kind of. It's not very situational. You can just activate it whenever, so you can start your chain whenever you want, basically. And it's kind of the same with Legacy of Yatagarasu. Um, you can technically kind of draw two if there's a face-up spirit monster, but the likeliness of that happening is almost zero. We also have a copy of Starlight Road. When two or more kind of cards on your side of the field would be destroyed by an effect, you can negate the effect and special summon Stardust Dragon. Now, it's good to know that if you do special this off Stardust Dragon and you use this effect to stop a destruction effect, you can't special summon him back as he wasn't properly summoned. But this is very much the Heavy Storm counter. If you're scared of Heavy Storm, then you want this. On a similar note, Dark Bribe and Fake Trap. These are very good against Heavy Storm. Dark Bribe negates a spell or trap and they draw a card. And Fake Trap, when your opponent tries to destroy your trap cards, it can be destroyed instead. So these are all good specifically for Heavy Storm. That's it. Dark Bribe has some alternative uses. If they're going to go into like a poly or something, then you can do this technically. But yeah, for the most part, they're just Heavy Storm counters. Next, we run Trap Dust Shoot. I mean, who doesn't in this format? It's too powerful. You can activate this when your opponent has 4 or more cards in their hand. Look at their hand and then select one monster and return it to the deck. So, yeah, it's just generically good. It doesn't do much for the strategy. I mean, you can chain it, technically, but it's very much stop your opponent playing for a bit longer. Next, we have a very key card. A very, very key card. Ojama Trio. Lets you special summon 3 tokens on their field. They cannot be tributed. Now, this can sometimes backfire, as they can be used for kind of a synchro summon or anything else. Obviously, in Edison, most commonly for synchro summoning. So, if you're going to play this, I would do it in a chain with the Just Desserts or Secret Barrel following it, or going beforehand, just so you can kind of pop in the damage as it gives them 3 monsters. That makes this automatically 1,500. Secret Barrel not so much, but when you combo them all together, it's absolutely massive. And yeah, not much else to say about the trio. Next, we run Magical Cylinder. I hope you know what this does. Negates attack and reflects the damage. It's just free burn and keeps you alive for a bit longer. Limited to 1, so I would run 3 if I could. So next up, we have Ceasefire. Once again, a very good burn card. It can flip monsters face up and not target their, or not activate their flip effects. But the main part of the card says also inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each effect monster on the field. So it's even more powerful than just desserts because it counts your effect monsters. So say you've summoned a Battle Fader or even a Cyber Valley, that counts. So an extra 500. Super powerful card in this deck. Next up we have Solemn Judgment. I mean, not much else to say. You can say no. And yeah, that's very powerful because you don't care about your life points. Now these two I have considered cutting. This is Mirror Force and Torrential Tribute. I love these cards. I think they're super powerful. They do slow down in the game a lot, but the card I would sub in for this is Dimension Wall. I'll put it up on the screen now. It's basically a Magical Cylinder, but more copies of it. And I would replace these two and possibly kind of one of these kind of Heavy Storm counters. I'll take one of these and 2 of these, and I'd replace it with Dimension Walls. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find any copies, so if you do have any, please feel free to replace one of these or these 2 as well, as it will make the deck a lot more consistent. But for now, it's just keeping the game slow and just burning them over time. And also, a lot of mental damage. People hate playing against this deck. It's the amount of reactions I got of just a deep sigh I can just tell I've hit them in the feels a bit. So if you're playing this, please note that the strongest part is the emotional damage, not the burn damage. So now we will be going into the side deck. We'll be doing the extra deck last. So first up we have the monsters. First one is my favourite, Electric Virus. You can discard it and target a machine or dragon monster your opponent controls and take control of it. This is really good against Dark Armed Dragon or Dad. You can literally just take it, but there's also other decks that kind of run the odd dragon or machine monster that you can take advantage of this card with. It's in the side because it's quite specific. If they are running something like Black Wings, and other meta decks, it's going to be very hard to find a target. So as soon as you see that their boss monster is a dragon or machine, put this in. Slide this in immediately. Next we have two Chaos the Shadow Monarch. Now, I kind of just put this in because it's a good card. It hasn't come up yet. It's very niche. The monsters you contribute are very few and far between, and they're often going to get destroyed, like Cyber Valley. It's there on the very fringe case that I'll find it useful. Next we have Consecrated Light. Again, this card hasn't come up, but neither player can normal or special summon dark monsters or declare an attack with a dark monster, and it can't be destroyed by battle with a dark monster, and you don't take any battle damage from that battle. So if your opponent is running kind of a dark kind of strategy, then this could be good, but as I say, I haven't really had a chance to test that out properly. And in the side we also run two Cyber Dragons. This is because we run something in the extra deck which will be kind of very useful for these to be in. And it is also quite useful in the fact that you can just special summon it and it's got 2100 attack. Now that seems meh, and it kind of is, but if you can hit for like over a monster for 500 or even less, every bit of damage counts for this deck. It's crucial to get the damage, and that's just an extra helping hand if you need it. And for the last monster in the side deck, we have Morphing Jar. This is one of my favourite cards. I have a jar collection that I'll have to show off on the channel at some point. But the effect is flip, both players discard their whole hand and then draw 5. This is great for when you kind of set 4, set 5, and then just set this on your field. And you kind of activate your effects, and then they attack. Congratulations, you've just got a whole set of back row back for you. Now, the only reason I don't run this in every deck or in the main deck, is because oftentimes it does give your opponent more resources, which can be very scary. And sometimes it doesn't benefit you. If the game is really slow and you've got some back row that just isn't working for you, it isn't really very good to play this, so that's why it's in the side, just for the matchups that I know this will be great in. Again, I played this against Exodia, and yeah, that was an instant scoop. It was so funny. Next we have a couple of traps. There's not as many traps in the side deck as most of them are in the main deck. First we got Dimensional Prison. This is kind of a meh card. You can't really chain off it because it's in the battle step. And it's more if there's monsters in the opponent's deck that I just know I'm not going to be able to deal with, or they're going to continuously bring back, I'll side this in and hope that I can draw it and play it on them. And secondly, we have Royal Oppression. I tried this week and it really didn't do much in the main. I didn't really run into many situations where I could activate it. For those who don't know, it has been banned for a while. Either player can pay 800 life points to negate the special summon of a monster and or the effects that special summon a monster, and then destroy the card. So if they're using a special summon based strategy, this can be absolutely insane, because once again you don't care about your life points and you're not really special summoning other than maybe the Cyber Dragon. And I thought it'd be insane. I thought it would just win games, and I did see some people just insta-win games with this, but yeah, it just wasn't working for me, so I just put it in the side. And lastly, we have the spells in the side deck. So we have some classic Edison kind of staples. We've got Nobleman of Crossout, target face down, banish it. Any if it's a flip, banish any copies of it in the deck. Good removal, and it's come up a couple of times, but again, it's very fringe cases. And now we only have one off spells. We run a Heavy Storm. This is probably my most questionable card in the deck because it just wipes your own back row. But this is one of the few spell and trap removals you have, and I'm very scared of Royal Decree. I'll put that on screen. Um, so if I ever run into Royal Decree, I'm siding this in, and I'm also siding in Mystical Space Typhoon, just so I can pray to get rid of that because it basically shuts this whole deck down. As you saw in the main deck, it's kind of like 20 trap cards at least. So yeah, if you see a Royal Decree, slide these in and pray. Next we have card destruction. So I run this because there are some matchups where some of your cards do nothing, like your kind of stall cards, your Cyber Valleys, your Battle Faders. Sometimes your opponent doesn't care. Sometimes they will just have their own strategy, say Exodia, and yeah. This is just there so that if we draw dead cards in the matchup, we can side this in and hope we see it once we've got those dead cards in hand. Next we have Brain Control. Pay 800 life points and target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Take control of it to the end phase. Now this is good with the Caius, the Shadow Monarch, as you can kind of just tribute over their monster. But what it also allows you to do is it does allow you to attack with it. So if they only have one monster, you can take it, kind of attack for game, or you can attack over another monster, kind of destroy one, or possibly destroy them both if they have the same attack. So it's a good value card, but once again, it's very fringe case, so we keep it in the side deck. We have My Body as a Shield. When your opponent activates a card that has the effect that destroys one or more monsters on the field, pay 1,500 and destroy it. And negate and destroy, apologies. See, this is one card I've considered running in the main, but it seemed very situational. It's good for using on your, well, any of your monsters at all, really. Anytime you can keep them on the field for a little bit longer, it's very helpful. But there's only certain decks that kind of run effect monster removal, as Raigeki's banned, so you can't exactly just activate this against Raigeki. So, again, very situational, that's why it's in the side. Last but definitely least, we have the extra deck. Now, I say least because we genuinely don't use much of it. The only cards we will use from the extra deck are Stardust Dragon to summon off of the kind of trap Starlight Road that when negated, or when you activate it, you can special summon this guy. So that's why I run that. We also run 3 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. So this is great in certain matchups. If you see they're running any machines at all, you side in the Cyber Dragons, and then you can just contact fuse them all into this Fortress Dragon, which is insane in this format. There's not very many just board wipes, but if you're playing against a machine deck, side these in, and then you can go into these. So I do recommend you do run 15 cards in the extra deck. I mean, the rest of it is absolutely useless, and just some funny cards. I mean, Five-Headed Dragon, the D-Knight, a Des Frog. I mean, look at him. I can not run him. Black Rose Dragon. Yeah, I mean, you're never going into any of these. But it's mainly there to, in game one, just keep your opponent thinking, you know? And that's why I also run the hero back, in case I confuse people into thinking that I'm not running some cheesy deck. Anyway, that's it for the deck list, and thank you so much for watching. If you have any suggestions for the deck, I'd love to see it. I love seeing how you can turn cards that just say kind of deal damage into a full deck. It's so cheesy and I love it. You can also leave a comment if you just hate this deck and hate watching this video so you can see exactly how to counter it. I'll give you a hint. It's Draw Heavy Storm and Dust Tornado. That's about it. Anyway, take care all and happy dueling. You were dealt a bad hand.